10,000 baby boomers are retiring every day. What will America look like when 20% of the population is over 65? Tonight we discuss the future of aging. And you'll get important information about a serious condition that can increase your chances for stroke fivefold. Funding for the Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. Many times on this show, you've heard discussions about the age wave that is sweeping the country. 10,000 baby boomers a day turning 65. By 2030, 20% of the population will be over 65. What impact will this have on our society? There are many serious issues facing older Americans, issues of health care, transportation, retirement finances, and more. Tonight on The Best Times, we'll take a look in a crystal ball and discuss the future of aging. Let's start our conversation with a big topic, healthcare. Now, I know that three of you here are involved in different areas of healthcare, and you report on it all the time in the newspaper, so I think you're all eminently qualified to talk about this. But when it comes to healthcare, we know that, the boomer generation, because of the size of that generation, is going to dramatically increase the number of people over age 65. We're going to have a large population that's going to have to be served in that healthcare arena. So I guess my question is, what is the landscape of healthcare going to look like in the future, given that boomer generation getting older and older each year?
I think that people are afraid to be sick, because if you're sick and you have to go in the hospital, and Medicare or whatever your insurance is only covers so much, and then you're left with a bill. So as you get older, you're already thinking, how am I going to afford to retire? And so I think people think they can't afford it. There are also tests and things that are very expensive procedures. So even if you're not going into a hospital having those procedures, sometimes it pays for it, sometimes you're left with a balance.
Any thoughts from?
Well, you mentioned that the boomer generation was the rapidly growing group, but not only there, more of them, they're older as well. And for example, recently when Senator McCain passed away, his 106-year-old mother attended his funeral. And so we thought of him as an older person, but yet his parents lived to be much older. So not only are there more of us, many of us are living to an older age.
That's true. The oldest old is going to be probably a rapidly growing demographic, age demographic, and they will have to be served as well by the same system we have in place now. Can our system serve these numbers? What do you think?
I think it can in certain metropolitan areas. I think Memphis is blessed in that we have so mighty good hospitals and medical professionals, but out in the rural area, I don't think they're served very well at all. And I think that's going to be a part of the country that's going to be...
rural hospitals are dying.
Yeah, they're
so
closing.
So many of them are dying. They're closing or being swallowed up.
Right.
Yeah, they are. And back on the thought of what is changing, we're already seeing change, because you're seeing Medicare come up with different trials on payment models that reduce some of the costs, procedural costs, hospital stay costs. You're seeing a lot more transition to try to get people home and provide services in the home. And so I think we're looking at a whole change in technology on how people are served, not necessarily just in an acute or hospital setting, but after that, how they're served after that to keep them healthy from coming back.
And Medicare has the model that if the hospitals aren't able to keep them out of the hospital, that they're going to decrease what they pay, and that's going to impact.
That's right.
Rapid readmission.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's called.
Yeah. What do you think the future of Medicare and Medicaid is going to be? Where are we heading with that?
I think with the large number of boomers entering the Medicare age, there's obviously must be some kind of system in place that would be available. I do think that seniors are going to have to start paying more of the cost than we're currently paying because of the large number of people and the expense involved.
Just because healthcare costs continue to go up every year.
Yeah.
Well, remember, and I don't remember the president that did it, when Medicare came about, they picked an age for retirement. He picked it. And that's not retirement now.
Yeah.
Maybe Medicare needs to scale its costs according to your age, so that if you're 106, you're not paying as much because you don't have as much financial.
See, my theory is once you get to 100, everything is free. You've made it to 100, everything should be free. I like that idea anyway.
Or if you get to 100, you just don't care. I mean, really, you're like, whatever.
Perhaps so, perhaps so. Well, now that we've solved healthcare problems, let's move on to retirement, and I think more specifically the financial side of retirement, because I think that's one of our major concerns. If we are afraid of our security, our health security, we're also afraid of our financial security as we age. A couple of statistics I ran across, which are shocking. There was a Northwestern Mutual survey. 33% of boomers in this survey, which is about 25 million people, have less than $25,000 saved. Less than $25,000. And they went on to say that almost 20% of retirees get 100% of their income from Social Security, which we know is not that big a check. So what do you think the future holds for Americans' retirement financial security?
A survey that was done in the 90s, 17% of people nearing retirement said that they plan to work after retirement.
Sure.
Same survey a couple of years ago, almost 70%,
right.
60-something
I've read
percent
that.
say they're going to have to work.
Will they, okay, I will ask, will they be able to work? Will our economy and our society make accommodations for people in their 70s or even 80s to continue working?
I love talking about this because the answer is yes.
Absolutely.
Seniors are well sought after because of their work ethic, their dependability, their experience. My business, we love hiring seniors. That's what we look for because they're mature and they're reliable and dependable. Not everybody is, but
they may not be able to work an 8-hour shift, but that's okay if they can work a 4-hour shift. They are so dependable and have a phenomenal work ethic. We love hiring them too.
Well, some of us work beyond retirement age,
You're right.
whether we want to or not. But in my case, I've retired twice, and I just am not the type of personality that want to sit home and do nothing. And so I continue to work because I enjoy working, and it gives me a sense of value and responsibility, and I think it keeps me younger as well. And so some people are going to work because they want to. I think many will because they want to.
I've met many people on the show just like yourself who have continued working long beyond the point where they could retire if they wanted to. And as you said, you've done it twice already. Yeah. You rejected that idea of retirement. Forget about retirement.
Yes.
But if you think about it, it makes sense that there would be somewhat of a financial crisis because let's suppose you've had children, you've had them late in life, you've sent them to college, maybe they didn't full scholarship in, so you've paid for that, which I can tell you is pretty expensive, and you've had weddings and those kinds of things. So every time you've managed to save, unless you've got those things in protected savings, then, oh my gosh, you've emptied out savings, filled it back up, emptied it out, filled it back up. And so, yes, I think people are going to need to work longer, but I'm like Jimmy. I'm going to work till they say, wait, you're too old, you can't work anymore. And I don't think they can say that because we're like in a protected class.
I was going to say, but you're only protected till 70.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's good. But it's one of those things where I do think senior adults, many need to work. and many want to work. And what a great thing.
And many don't have a plan for what they want to do after they retire.
Exactly.
And so then they start sitting around, and then they want to go back to
which is a
work.
huge retirement mistake.
Yeah,
I mean,
you should
I've
know what
often
you're.
heard it said that you need to plan for your retirement. It's consider it another stage of your life,
Yes.
just like you go from college to work, and then to parenthood. Well, then there's the retirement hood.
Yeah, you
that have to plan
retire
for.
to something, not
Yes.
to nothing.
That's
That's
exactly right. That's exactly right. Social Security. I mentioned that statistic that there are a lot of people relying on Social Security as their sole source of income, which it was never intended to be. But what do you see as the future of Social Security in this country?
Well, it's going to continue to have financial strains based on the large number of people. I think at some point in time, our federal government is going to subsidize Social Security, much like they do other social programs, so that it will be viable. Maybe not as much as it should be, but I think it'll have to be strengthened by government.
Well, it may have to when you're talking about 78, 80 million of the boomer generation that will be eligible for Social Security in just a few years.
I was going to say, that's the thing, we put money in, but it's the current working force that
They're
puts the
paying for
money
it,
in.
yes.
And when you have such a big glut of baby boomers, there's not going to be the money to pay for things.
Let's talk about transportation. Every time, I have read many articles that say about aging commissions, and often the #1 request to aging commissions across the country is transportation. How can I get to the doctor? How can I get to the pharmacist? What can we do, especially in this city, because it's so spread out? We don't have a great public transportation system for people who don't have or can't have access or don't have access to automobiles. What can we do about transporting an older population and getting them to the doctor, getting to the pharmacy and the places they need to go?
Well, there are facilities now that have transportation available. Most of us who are not needing them are not aware of it. But there's one, ITN Transportation, for example, that's very inexpensive. They use volunteer drivers. The expense is a minimum, much less than maintaining an automobile. Other facilities as well, Uber and Lyft and many other commercial transportation companies. So it's readily available. It's just that the public is not fully aware of it.
Uber is so much technologically based that you're going to have problems with seniors using it unless we can overlay Uber with a safety net so they know for sure that they're not going to be some Looney Tune picking them up, and different things. But I think Uber is really going to be, Uber or Lyft, something that will expand and help seniors because they don't want to sit at home when they want to go do something.
Do you think that the city could ever have a public transportation system that would serve this population, an adequate one?
They could, but will they put resources towards that?
It would cost a lot of money. That's what
It
you're
costs a
saying.
ton of money to do that. I mean, you're talking about a system that is expensive from its base and its vehicles to transport and its systems of accountability. Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
Well, and a rapid rail, which is something we really need in this city, wouldn't help seniors because they need to be delivered to the door.
Exactly.
They can't take a 4-mile walk from wherever
from the bus stop or wherever, the station. Yes, I understand. Let's talk about technology a little bit. We sort of dabbled in that in some of the answers, but I'm curious to know what you think the impact of technology will be in the future. We just talked about transportation. I'll just throw out, what about autonomous cars? Do you think they're a big help in the seniors' future?
I'm always scared about those self-driving cars. I tell you, I don't know that there's a car
had
I
a
would
few
trust getting me
accidents.
from one place to another. But I will say this, in terms of technology and keeping people aging in place, there are already developments in video visits. Doctors are seeing patients in the home right now through video conferencing. telehealth. They're checking vital signs that are automatically sent to a nurse that's recording those. So there's all kind of stuff.
I wonder
right
if we
now.
can have in the future like wearable technology that will send our vital signs.
They already have that.
They already have that.
Absolutely. You can already have your blood
behind.
pressure taken. You can, in anything that is not intrusive, like taking blood. Obviously, machine's not going to do that for you yet, but it can take your blood pressure. It can do all those kinds of things. Take your temperature, see what your heart rate is.
Do you see a day where artificial intelligence has gotten to the point where we could have robot servants in our home?
If we could afford them.
If you can afford
I
them,
think
yeah.
that's possible, but I mean, just now with the technology Alexa, I mean, you can program machines like that to have medication reminders.
That's right.
And Roomba,
Yeah, Roomba.
cleaning your house.
So the problem is that the human interaction that is needed to ensure those things are happening still has to happen in some effect.
Let me talk about social engagement. Because according to what I've read, 1 in 5 Americans, now that's a total population, not just those over 65, 1 in 5 Americans do not have friends or family to rely on when they need help. And also boomers have been less involved in their neighborhoods, less involved in civic activities, less involved in church activities and so forth than previous generations. And we all know that social engagement is important as we age. So given those two facts, where are we headed in the future? Are we going to be a bunch of lonely boomers sitting out there in our homes?
We'll be depressed.
playing with our
lonely.
smartphones? Is that what it's going to be?
From a behavioral health standpoint, you're looking into the eyes of depression. I mean, when you're isolated, that's why what Ken does in terms of sitters and other professionals coming in the home, what Ruth Ann does with having a care center so that folks can come and be engaged in activities, those things are essential for older folks not to become depressed. I mean, there's nothing more depressing. I mean, I can only enjoy my company for so long, and I'm ready to enjoy someone else's.
Well, and they talk about what happens to seniors, and specifically they were talking in nursing homes, but I see it all the way down. The 3 major problems: loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. You know, and that isolates you. And the more you're isolated, the more helpless, the more bored, and the more lonely you're going to be.
And you know, we talked earlier about hospital readmissions. Some of the main causes of these readmissions are social and cognitive deficiencies.
Totally.
And can you imagine the results? I mean, we like to talk about non-compliance. You know, medical professionals talk about non-compliance. Well, there's always a reason for non-compliance, and oftentimes it's because of depression. People give up because they have no friends, no family, and so they're not going to take those blood pressure pills. That's going to result in another hospitalization. So it's a cycle that socialization is critical.
Well, you know, this is changing too, because when we were young, we took care of our parents. Now we're scattered. We don't live anywhere near our children. And so the change in our society has brought a lot of this on. So it becomes, from a health perspective, very important that we have social contact with other people through some means, either in our neighborhood or church or some neighborhood association that we could be a part of, such as the senior citizens centers that are around the city, you know, to keep people involved.
I want to close out by talking about ageism. Now, the boomers have had an impact on society throughout their lives, but what changes do you think the boomers will make when it comes to the picture that people have of aging? Are boomers going to change the face of being an old person?
I think they already are.
And I think that in the boomer's mind, the old person is now like 90 or 95,
That's right.
not 65 or 70.
Well, old is always about 20 years older than you are.
That's right.
90 is the new 70.
There you go. All right, well, I want to thank all of you for being on The Best Times, talking about the future of aging, and we'll look back on this and see if your predictions come true. My heart skipped a beat. That's a phrase that you might hear when you've fallen in love or escaped a close call. You don't want your heart to actually skip beats. It's a condition called AFib, an irregular heartbeat. At least 2.7 million Americans are living with AFib, and 33% of them don't think that it's a serious condition. But if left untreated, AFib is associated with a 5-fold increase for stroke. Here's some information that will help you in understanding AFib. What is AFib?
Atrial fibrillation is an irregular rhythm of the heart where instead of having a normal regular rhythm, the heart is beating totally irregularly. It's a disorder, it's an electrical disorder of the upper chambers of the heart. About 3.5 to 5 million of Americans are affected by this.
What causes AFib?
We still do not know what is exactly the cause for atrial fibrillation, but according to all the research which we have, we think most of the times atrial fibrillation is triggered by pulmonary veins. These veins carry blood from the lungs to the heart, and these veins are thought to be the electrical triggers for atrial fibrillation. So what these veins do is they electrically misfire. They are not supposed to do that, but they have cells in them which makes them misfire and electrically stimulate rest of the heart, which makes it go into atrial fibrillation.
What are the symptoms?
Atrial fibrillation can cause different symptoms in different people. The common ones are palpitations or fluttering in the chest, shortness of breath. Some people might have chest pain. Some people might feel extremely tired, lack of energy. Many people may not have any symptoms at all.
Who is at risk?
So there are several risk factors for atrial fibrillation. The most important one is age. As people get older, they become at a higher likelihood of having atrial fibrillation. Specifically, patients above 60 years of age are very likely to have AFib. And if you look at the prevalence, almost like 1/5 of patients, about 20% of patients above 80 years of age have atrial fibrillation. The other risk factors are having diabetes, heart failure, high blood pressure, increased alcohol, and then some people with sleep apnea or obesity are also at risk of having atrial fibrillation.
Are there gender or race differences?
In general, males are more likely to have atrial fibrillation than females, but females live longer than males. So if you look at in a whole population, you might have more females than males with atrial fibrillation. In terms of race, it's more common in Caucasians or whites than in African Americans or blacks. We don't know the reason why, but I suspect there is a genetic component to that.
What treatment is available?
There are different ways to treat atrial fibrillation. One of the most important management strategy is to prevent stroke. So as soon as the diagnosis is made, those patients need to be started on blood thinners to prevent stroke. Recently, we have some alternatives to blood thinners. So for example, if someone does not tolerate blood thinners or has reasons not to be on blood thinners, for example, if somebody is having falls or bleeding, we have recently at Methodist Hospital started implanting devices called Watchman devices, which are small umbrella-shaped devices which plug the area in the heart which is notorious for harboring clots and causing stroke.
Can AFib be prevented?
So it's very important, number one, to have a good lifestyle, maintain good diet and exercise regime, prevent risk of having heart diseases, and those things will automatically decrease one's chance of having atrial fibrillation.
What does the future hold?
We anticipate in the next 15 to 20 years the number of AFib patients are going to double over time. So it's extremely important that we are vigilant about it. We see our doctors regularly even if we are feeling good, because atrial fibrillation is a condition which can cause stroke even if somebody has absolutely no symptoms.
For more information about AFib, go to this American Heart Association website. Want more information about life after 50? Go online to watch more shows and find more resources. And send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Chris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you.